Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Conscience. We are rocking with the Conscience Hip Hop Podcast. Again, I'm here with Artificial Christian. This is part 2 of our interview. Without waiting at all, we got the fellas still in the studio. Let's dive into our next set of questions. Now, Warren, this question's for you. What does Warren add to the picture that's different from the other group members?
Okay. I think I definitely... Well, for one, I bring my own different story, living in a completely different part of the country, different context, different stories and things I think environment will lead itself into. That, I think we all bring that, but I guess, I think growing up in New York City is very unique in some aspects, in some respects. So.
Give us a few that come to your mind immediately.
I mean... without causing, I guess I don't want to get too dark, in some areas, but I haven't necessarily been a part of everything, but I've seen a lot. I've lost a lot of close friends to a lot of crazy things, and I think that definitely shapes my story in a lot. But also, I just think I also have a lot of experience, in music. I released my first project almost 10 years ago now.
Wow.
So,
real quick, let's go through the ages here. Spence, how old are you?
27.
27.
27.
27.
Recently 27. 27 club.
Look how God works like that.
I've been doing music for almost 12, 13 years. So, definitely just got a lot of experience that maybe these guys came in a little bit after me, that there's probably certain things I can hear just from experience. Your story is most definitely, even in your mind, from an intentional standpoint, your story element is what you see when you contribute to Artificial Christian. Okay, dope. Now, same follow-up to you, same thing. You give your audience, ironically, my next question, you give your audience a lot of what I would call snapshots in your music, a lot of Polaroids for people to look at, a lot of short stories, so to speak. Have you always written like that? And if so, what about storytelling makes it so natural to do when you make music? Okay. I haven't always written like that. I think with age and wisdom, and just from hearing other people, how they've connected with me has been through their story. So, and I think that goes with preaching or music, or just if you're discipling someone, how do you teach people? How do you train people? How do you show God's glory? It's through your story and through the stories and of people maybe you've grown up with or been around or whatever it may be. So, when it comes to music, I feel like I want people to be able to relate to what I'm saying, or if they can't relate, at least get an idea of where I'm coming from. So, my first, approach to it is to try to paint a picture, paint a landscape. This is, whether it's a song like Playground Days or Restoration, whatever the song may be, I just want to give them a quick, or a picture of life, and let them into what my head is, since I say I'm an internal process, let them to know what I'm thinking, why this topic is so important to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I'm just gonna sporadically, I thought of this as I heard you talking about that. A lot of rappers dig behind them in their past when they write. I don't care if it's a story, an emotion, a feeling. How much of when you guys individually write, and this could be a real brief answer, but what's the ratio, so to speak, for every time you produce a song, out of 10 records, how much of those do you find yourself digging in the past versus talking currently in what you're presently going through?
Yeah, I'll just continue on and then pass it on. But I definitely think you bring up a good point, because I don't always personally want to think about what I'm saved from, but what I'm saved to. Towards, so I'm not, as I'm thinking about the past, I don't want to live there, so I try to bring it back to the present, maybe things were this way, but now they're this because of this, and this is where we're heading. In
the verse or track to track?
Well, I think you have to take it kind of track to track, because maybe in my mind, each track is calling for a different story, right? So maybe in some tracks, some songs, I gotta live here, right? And some song, but you hear another song and I'm here, you know what I mean? So I think we definitely all do show that progression, but from song to song, maybe we live in certain places. Right?
And especially hard because, before we pass to West, rap is tough because usually you get 16 bars.
Yeah.
You're lucky to get a 24 or a 32 if you talk a lot or you're really feeling the beat.
Yeah.
But so even when we snapshot stuff, you know, you struggle between the poetry of it and the literal.
That's true.
And you got such a small amount of time to do it. Sometimes people take the approach where I'm just gonna try to paint a holistic picture, or some people want to just capture a moment, or some people want to capture the artistry. And so that can be something really hard to juggle with if you're a multifaceted person, because you only got a snap of a finger to do it. So some people sit in different regions of that, or some people try to every 2 bars get a little bit of everything. And so it's really interesting just hearing people's writing process, because I don't even think a lot of times people are even aware of that. But then when they listen to a body of work, it's interesting to kind of look back and see, like, what made me tick on each record, and was there a pattern? Is there stuff that I'm drawn to? Because you know, especially with the array of music that you guys have, the challenge always is probably sitting there to do something different, but do stuff the same, because you guys have that natural swing. So when you get in a nice flow of a certain season of life, a story of life, or a delivery of your expression, you might want to sit there and stew in that and mold that and build that too. So that's just really interesting.
Can I just say, you know, it's so funny you say that, because I was just talking with PS about that like a couple of days ago, and we were like, man, like, I guess the ones that we would call in this genre great or have reached the upper echelon are the ones who are able to combine all those things, like verse to verse, like to be a great storyteller, but to do it in a way that highlights the artistry and the poetry of it. So like, I think that's something that maybe that we're all striving for, is to get to that level where it's all elements are kind of in each song, you know.
And I think another thing to piggyback off that too is just a lot of the legends have so much music. So you have years of experience with the artist to let them express enough times to where you can see the array. I think a lot of times, if you only have a project or two, you're still only getting a snapshot within a snapshot within a snapshot. So it's like, you know, that idea of being able to share an experience with your audience over a long period of time, especially for a dude who's a really critical thinker, which I think all of you guys in your in your own sense are that. So it sounds like, you know, maybe even a couple years from now, we're gonna see a lot more to you from an artistry standpoint and from a story standpoint. Wes, what about you? When you're writing, like, is there anything that comes to mind that you just, as far as the snapshot thing and stuff like that, like, anything stick out to you in that?
It depends on the situation. If I'm writing by myself, I may, 9 times out of 10, I'm living the moment, and I refer back to my past, but I'm living the moment. And so it's like, every verse, when I hear every verse, I can think about what I was feeling in that moment, what I was thinking about, what thoughts led to what. Whenever you put a verse and a chorus together, it's just like, okay, well, even if I'm not feeling it, it's like, okay, well, how would I feel if this happened? Or he was talking about playground days, and I was like, dang. And I never really thought about, oh, my dad wasn't here, this and that. I know my dad wasn't here. You know what I'm saying? My mom did certain things she had to do, but I never really just thought about it. So when he said it, it's like, okay. It's like back when the Bulls were quite revered, like, and I thought about it, like, you know what I'm saying? I remember watching the TV and watching Jordan. Michael Jordan was my favorite player at the time, and he hit a half-court shot, and I missed it. I was outside, and my mom was calling me like, "Yo, Wes," you know what I'm saying? And so I remember things like that. So it was like, yo, it just depends on the situation. But most of the time, I'm living the moment. I just refer back to my past.
So you're making web-like connections where you're grabbing memories that you find yourself repeating now in a new way.
Yeah. And
you're making those connections. Interesting. What about you, Spence? You live in the past, you in the future? Are you conscious of that when you write? Because a lot of music's about feeling too. So there's the feeling aspect of it. Sometimes you don't even realize what you're doing until the verse is done.
That's true.
What about you, Spence?
I would say, for me, so I write a lot of poetry. I went to school for poetry, and a lot of times I will sit in what I was feeling at that moment in time and allow that to really inform the way that I'm writing something. And then think about it, get a little bit of distance from it, and then consider the process of how, it's shaped and moved toward where I'm at now. But generally, to begin with, I will sit in it and like really like, how was I feeling at that point in time, or when I'm singing a hook or a part of whatever, like what kind of emotions are evoked in those moments when I'm like thinking about like with Playground, like stuff with Playground Days. I didn't really do too much on that, but like going back to my childhood and considering some of those things and how I was feeling, and like what emotionally is that evoking, you know what I mean? And so a little bit different from these guys, like I'll sit in that and then progress into how it's moving, you know what I mean? So
dang, and it's interesting how we started with Warren on that, but we kind of just let it.
Yeah.
It sounded like something I wanted to kind of eventually hear about from all you guys. Yeah. Speaking of which, though, let's go back, zoom out again to Artificial Christian. I like when dudes think about themselves in interviews, but I especially like when dudes are thinking about their counterparts in this case in the group. So I got an interesting question for you guys. So I want each of you to speak on what about the other two individuals motivates you the strongest when you make your music. So let's start with Spence. What about Wes and Warren? Touch on each one, individually if you can, or if you think of a collective thing. What about them gets you thinking, I want to make music?
I'll start with Dub. I would say for him, his drive and his relentlessness at continuing to pursue different topics and different avenues in the music, and his he has a lot of depth, like he talks about, and him being able to articulate that, like I'm like, man, like dude, you have so many things from so many different aspects of life, and it's like, man, that all and with the gospel is like the driving force of that, like you're able to bring that to the table and like really evoke things in people that they normally wouldn't think about, or that they normally wouldn't necessarily consider. And I think being able to articulate that and tell that story, and so dynamically, continuously, like all the time, like he's like, man, I got something, and I'm like, man, I wish I had something else.
You left the needle off the record player. I'm hearing the same thing.
Seriously.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, and it's hard on it too, man. Like he's definitely we did another talk a while back, but yeah, he's definitely the heart and of all this, and it's like really pumping and pushing, not only the limits of what we're doing, in the music, but also even in like just living with the guy, you know what I'm saying? Like on all the different levels, not only musically but outside of that too. And then for Wes, like Wes is a perfectionist, and I'm like, I resonate with that because I kind of am too, but he takes it to another level sometimes. And so like when don't get
surgical on me,
exactly. You're like playing Operation, man. You're like trying to pick up the piece of the thing. Yeah, and I think his attention to detail in that sense, like he takes some time to perfect his bars, and really like his stuff is complex sometimes, and it has a lot of depth to it, and you really have to dive in and sink your teeth into it in order to understand that. And so like when I know he's gonna write something, I'm like, man, like I know I'm gonna have to really concentrate and consider this, because it's gonna have a lot of implications that I'm gonna have to dive in a whole lot of different areas to get.
Sure.
And so that's like for me, like that's huge. And then like obviously like both of these cats are in the stage of life that I'm not, or Wes is married, Warren's on his way over there. But being able to look at these kids,
just take a moment to pray.
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing them in that context as well too, and how they're able to balance the music as well as the relationships, and even if through trials and tribulations and stuff, like still being able to pursue the thing, that God is calling them to pursue in this, and balancing a job, and balancing or multiple jobs, and balancing, a relationship, and that's, seeing that is something that really is like, okay, like I see that, like, wow, okay, you guys can do it. I'm like, I'm not y'all, but I know that, God is equipping you to do that. So it's like,
you see yourself.
Being able to move in the direction too of like that balance, which is helpful.
Dope. Wes, what about Spence and Warren motivates you?
That's hard. That's hard as crap, because I'm self-motivated.
Because I do it all.
By myself.
It's just me and myself.
Well, I'll start with Spence first. I have to start with Spence first. Just the wisdom alone is enough for me.
Okay.
Man, cause I never forget it. It was that I feel like it's my verse. Don't say anything about my verse. This is what I put my heart into. Don't touch it.
Mm-hmm.
This man says, Wesley, you should say it like this, and say Father. So it sounds. This is the song specific is Restoration. You should say Father because you were talking about the mother the whole time. So Father as a reference to God would sound really good, and then you have to slow it down. I didn't want to change that, but I decided, I will.
Mm-hmm.
I did it. It sounds dope. And so stuff that normal people would tell me, and I would feel like, don't touch me. I'm thankful that he can tell me, and it's completely, and even from his harmonizing, and it's like, and he's real specific too. Like whenever he harmonizes and does it, I'm like, he said, nah, this doesn't sound right. Let me do this over. Warren be like, nah, bro, it's cool. He'd be like, nah, let me do it over.
Yeah.
And I was like, and so I'm connected in that manner. So it's like, yeah. And so, and that's like, okay, cool. Like, well, and then he's like, he always like, y'all are dope. Y'all are dope. And so that motivates me. Like, okay, well, maybe I am actually a decent rapper.
Sure.
And Warren alone, okay, so him sending 5-6 tracks a week recorded to my phone keeps me motivated alone.
Like music is a lost woman he's trying to ask out on a date. He's knocking on the door every
yeah, bro, he has I've never wrote so many verses in my life. Bro.
Bible says you get 2 or more witnesses. I'm a witness to that.
Bro, it's just
the claim is true.
Just the motivation to drive to keep on going. It's like, he's like, okay, we got the buzz, we got to keep going. I'm like, what you mean? I got to rest my mind. Like, I was like, this doesn't make sense to me. And so, but I used to be like that with G&G. That was me until I got married and stuff like that. But,
sure.
But yeah, that was like, dang, like, and that's what really drives me. Like when he does that, I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be the one slacking. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, nah, I can't be slacking.
Yeah.
Like,
That competitive element's still there. It hasn't left you. But, before you go into that, I just want to kind of highlight as I'm hearing them talk. Mm-hmm. It's so interesting how important trust and respect is almost like a green light for you to grow. Because it's like, if you respect somebody, in this case, artistically, as a man, the whole creative process, it frees you to not jump to offense when critique happens. Yeah. And it's so important in groups and just in life as an individual that the dudes who are willing to be critiqued grow the fastest.
Yeah, it's so true.
And that's not the easiest thing to do, especially growing up in a context in hip hop, a sport where pride and competitive drive is oftentimes the core of what we do. It's very hard to get critiqued in that because you put your heart in the midst of that competitive drive, and no one can really stab into that because it's not comfortable. And so
that's right.
It's a blessing, I think, that before even hearing Warren talk, I'm sure he's going to touch on this too. Yeah. You guys have a high amount of respect for each other, and that allows you and frees you guys up to be able to speak your honest opinions into one another's lives without it being a sensitive thing, without it being a judgmental thing, and you guys will grow a lot faster, and it shows in the music because what happens, the music is dynamic, and at the end of the day, whether you believe it or not, when you decide to be in a group, you have forfeited a certain amount of equity and stock in the musical process to 2 other individuals. So you have to respect that. You can't just come into the game thinking it's all about me now. Right. So you're almost forced to. But that still won't work out if you don't have the trust and the respect. So it's amazing how that has definitely shaped you guys, and how the product of it is just really diverse music. Right. What motivates you about Spence and Wes?
Yeah, I mean, this is really, I've been a part of a lot of groups in life as far as music goes, but I can really say this is like the dopest group I have been a part of. Like,
okay.
And I mean, just starting with Wes, like, I mean, right off the bat, before I even really connected with him, just hearing him rapping, I was like, all right, like, that dude can spit. Like, you know what I mean? That's off the top. Like, you know, like, that extremely talented, extremely, like, if I bring something to the table, you know, let's say in a verse, he's going to bring something that I didn't even think about. And I think deliver it in such a way where it's like you can't help but be gripped. You know, and it's just like, it's never just like, oh, like, you know, it's one person's verse and the other. It's like he's bringing so much to the, even if I write the hook and whatever, like, he's bringing ideas and just the verse, which is gonna like really put the capping or the icing on top of the song. So I think like, and yeah, I mean, even if you may hear me on a lot of hooks or whatever, like, it's never just been a one-man show. It's like, all right, like, do it this way. Like, their contribution of ideas and man, from Wes, and just like his experience in Christian hip hop, which is, you know, far longer than me, has been great. And even besides the music part, just me and him sometimes we just sat here and just talked about life. For hours, man. Like, and that alone those are the things that influence music, man. Like, those conversations and thoughts and the things we're processing and work through, those conversations have been humongous for me. Humongous. He's in an area where I'm not yet. You know, he's married. He's gone through marriage, or, you know, beginning his marriage and everything like that. And those are things that I know we both strive for. I say we, I mean me and PS, but like, we're not there yet. So he has a lot of wisdom that we just don't possess yet. So, it's really been a blast. Like, definitely hands down best rapper I've worked with, like, consistently. Spencer, man. This dude, if I come up with an idea, like, he is the one, like, it's like he's almost in my head. He'll be like, all right, I'll be like, all right, you know what, like, because sometimes, you know, just because we live together and everything like that, I'll be like, you know, I was thinking about doing this, so I'll lay it down and be like, you know, I want to add something to it, and he'll just be like, I know exactly what it is. And it's like, he lays it down, and it's just like, dang, dude, like, that is exactly what I was thinking, and it was that times 10. So, I mean, and besides that, that's like I would definitely call him my best friends here, like, just honest. We talked about everything. All topics have been covered. I think he is a phenomenal singer. He brings, and it's not just singing, it's emotion behind it, man. It's not just going up in there and singing a couple tunes, like, if we're bringing it in the verses, he's bringing it in the hook, man. Like, you're hearing that pain, you're hearing that, whatever the emotion may be, you're feeling it in your heart, man. And that's always huge for me with music, because I want to be able to feel it, and he's never failed to execute. So,
man, and you know what's incredible about that is, like, I just want to touch on something here. You guys make a lot of music. And I've been around a long time, but it's not easy to make. I've got fossils out there somewhere that are worth millions at this point. You know, out of a toenail, something. But seriously, like, you guys make a lot of music, and I've yet to hear a song that I don't appreciate, and that's not easy. It is not easy to make a lot of great music seemingly effortlessly. And so, like,
I got something to say about that.
I think there's a lot of I think there's a lot to be said about that, because there's a lot of meaning, because there's a lot of story, because there's a lot of emotion, because there's a lot of respect, because there's a lot of trust, because you guys are around each other doing life. It has given you guys an unlimited supply of tools and energy and motivation to jump into the booth and song after song after song after song after song, at least have a standard that you guys are extremely comfortable with, and that is not redundant. That's very hard to do. That is not a natural gift, especially for 3 people in the same room, to execute. So that is really dope. As we kind of come to a close here on our part 2, I have like another question or 2 for you guys. I don't usually like to touch on the negative, but very briefly, if any, what have been some of the challenges? If you could pick one challenge being a part of this group so far, it can be with yourself, it can just be something you've seen amongst the group. Each one of you guys, give me one brief challenge that you've had coming into the music. Let's start with Wes.
My one brief challenge?
Yeah.
Being married and still pursuing like I'm
Careful.
single.
He picked the right time to say that.
Nah, but it's like being married and still pursuing like I'm single.
Yeah.
I
That's
can't
real.
pursue the
That's
dream
real.
like I'm single if I'm
Yeah,
married.
that's
And that's been my thing, trying to balance that all together.
Yeah.
She's more understanding now.
That's real.
So.
Dope. Spence.
I would say this season, this has been this has been one of the most difficult seasons in my life personally.
That's real.
From, health issues to, things, even moving in this house and some of the things around that, and just some other, just having responsibilities outside of this that I've had to, take care of. Even my own family, my sister, her 2 kids, and just like stepping into those roles and having to do a lot of those things. Plus, on top of that, all the responsibilities as well. That has been extremely challenging.
Wow. Sure.
And it has, there's been moments in time where I've been out of the mix for a week and a half, couple weeks, just because I was, I had an appendix that exploded and was dealing with that. Like even the first weekend when they were recording, like
right.
I was in the hospital, and I've been in the hospital a few times since then. But just a lot of things in this season together have really been challenging, and having to continue pursuing and moving in this direction. But in spite of all that, the Lord has been, He's been faithful, and He's been gracious, and He's continued to provide, even in the midst of those struggles and those tribulations. And so,
Yeah.
that, for sure.
Dang, that's crazy, man. Warren, what about you?
I think.
Top that.
I know. How do you? No, but I think
What
it's been.
challenge could you dare to have?
I think it has been very challenging because a lot of the music things or circles I've always been able to just like get my ideas across or push them, but being a part of a group, like you said, there has to be some level of trust and respect. And a lot of times, like I put things across and they've just been like, no, we don't feel that's a good idea, or we don't feel that's the right direction. And you know what? Because there's that trust and respect, like I appreciate that. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I believe, like I want to move as a unit. So, I think putting away pride.
Yeah. And it's interesting because it's funny how 2 or more can cover a lot more ground, and yet the conscious approach to making decisions feels slower. And it is. It's like, it's almost like something that would take you a split second to decide upon in your own head might take you 10 minutes a day, a week with a group, and yet when you guys hit the gas, you go way further.
Yeah.
And so there's it's just functions differently. So for a guy who's used to just kind of doing whatever they want and being able to make decisions and never have to rely on anybody, that's got to definitely be a challenge, and even just an instinctual urge that you probably would fight with being in a group. But again, the trust and respect there is so crucial, because it slows you down to make that extra bit of consideration, and to see that the vision's bigger than you, and it's bigger than all you guys.
Yeah.
So
Amen.
just
Amen.
it's never foolish to take a couple steps back, recalibrate, and verify an idea and a decision for your guys' vision 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times, as opposed to what you're familiar with. Because the end product, you're always that much more sure, you're always that much more aware, and the fruit of it is probably tenfold compared to what you may have come up with on your own. But it does still seem like you guys have your urges where somebody has a emotion about a certain decision, you guys still have the room to function like that, where it's like, okay, he says this, like I'm gonna just roll with it. I wouldn't normally, and so it sounds like your guys' relationship definitely functions really well. I'm gonna run through 2 more questions. This is for Spence.
Cool.
So we're gonna try to package this up
away,
as we
take it
come to
away.
a close. So Spencer,
How single are you?
Are
you available?
that's a different podcast, different set of music. We're gonna have the vinyl. I gotta have an incense ready for that episode. I'm getting it ready for you. We got some Nag Champa. I gotta get a different light in here. We might just do the green or maybe purple.
That's cool,
Get a little romance in here.
Take it away.
But maybe the podcast later we could put an advertisement out there. But so far you're the harmony and the singing component to Artificial Christian. What are your strengths in the group, as far as this is similar to what I asked Warren, what do you feel that approaching the songs with harmonies and singing and melody, a whole different delivery and paradigm for how you're contributing to Artificial Christian, what are your strengths that you notably see, like when I come on this track, wow, I can bring something here? Because the writing process has got to be different.
Definitely. I would say I write considerably less than these guys just because, you know, they're taking a bulk of the song through their verses. And so I have a small pocket to write a little bit. And most of the time, you know, they already have a hook or you know, something
concept
for what's going on. Though there have been songs where it's like we've pounded out a hook in the midst of doing it, which has been really, really cool too. But I'd say strength-wise, being able to hear the musicality of the song and then also being able to tie that into what they're doing is something I feel like that is a strength. Like, you know, Warren talks about I'm in his head. It's like I don't even know how I'm in there, but I'm in there.
You find a way.
Yeah, I'm knocking in there talking, you know. But it's you know, by God's grace, like it's been a blessing to be able to understand and kind of hear what he's articulating or trying to articulate, and then being able to be like, okay, like we're making music. It's not just we're making rap and we have hooks. It's like this whole thing, each song, you know, this entire project, everything that we're doing is music. And so being able to hear those elements, and like I'm classically trained in vocal performance, and so like being able to have that as like a base and using that and seeing that, and then the poetry aspect of it too. It's like these guys are painting pictures with their words, and I'm trying to create the setting and the environment for those things to live and breathe in the midst of the hook. And so like that's, you know, I think the strength is also knowing my role in the midst of that and being able to play that position well, even though it may not necessarily be, you may not hear a whole lot of me on it, but when you do, it's like I'm fitting into the greater context of what it is, which is the song in its entirety. And so that's definitely a strength.
Yeah, and I think what's also different about your addition to the group as opposed to rapping is like you put a melody to words, and so you bring a level of seriousness and a level of emotion that a lot of times words just can't do on their own. And you bring a level of like bodily engagement into the music that rappers probably can't do well, you know. And so and just the ability to fill up space to see if there's something musically in the arrangement that is still empty or dry. You know, I think there's something to be said about singers because they really are the kind of life, they're the heartbeat to an idea and a story that, you know, there's a lot to be said about it, because it's amazing how gripping singing can be and how melodics can be with far less words have just as much impact. And I think especially with your guys' music, sonically, you're approaching that in a very unique way. From hooks to filling space to what you're saying, to all the layering. You do a lot of layering from record to record, which I think is huge. And just naturally, like, your style of singing is unorthodox in a lot of ways from what people hear, especially in CHH, but you're hitting it from a lot of different angles, and I think your influences kind of speak to that. So that's just amazing, and I'm glad we got to kind of hear your heart on that. Guys, we're hitting this heavy, man. We're at the end of part 2, and I just want to say this, like, it's so important to me from podcast to podcast. I've never really explained this a lot on my podcast, but like my goal is to like literally put a magnifying glass to these individuals so that you can see their story, the whole process of what it means to be an MC, a Christian man, processing through life. I want to give a transparent look for young kids and old people alike to see completely honest stories in the arts and in the testimony of these individuals, and I want them to be able to take that and bear fruit in their own life, ultimately to see the love, the creativity, and the majesty of Christ, and also see themselves even in these guys that we're talking to here from week to week on this show. So, you know, for a lot of you guys who are like, man, I just want to hear about the music, I want to hear the cuts, I want to hear the album, I want to hear about all the social media. There is far more to it than that. And I think by the end of each podcast, people will really appreciate that. You know, beyond anything, I want you guys to be able to listen to this podcast and truly have some gold that you can take and say, I'm going to do what I just heard on that podcast. Or, you know what, that really touched me, that motivated me. Ultimately, this podcast is about the listener, you guys. It's not just about the guys who come up here. Obviously, I want them to get their shine and stuff. But this is about the everyday Joe Schmo. You might not even be involved in hip hop, but that you could be encouraged, enlightened, and see the things that God's doing, not just in the arts, but more importantly, in people's lives. And you can take that and become a disciple, sharpen your pen in whatever you're passionate about, and in your relationships and in your family and in your churches. Or if you don't know God, seeing God for the first time authentically and not with all the hype and the sugar that's often put out there. So this is way more than hip hop. This is way more than artificial Christian. But these three guys, as you can tell, have a crazy story to tell that I know you guys will bear fruit from and hope you're encouraged by. So saddle up. I saved the best for last. We got part 3 coming up. This is Conscience with the Conscience Hip Hop Podcast, interviewing Artificial Christian. We'll be right back. See you in a bit.